world has the same interests in mind: freedom, security, and so forth. That's all we want. It's 1% of these psychopaths who manage to rise to the top of these institutions and wield the power of these institutions to inflict their will upon the world, and we become the victims of that, and use politics and religion to divide us against one another. I mean, that's what people need to wake up from. It's quit fighting the matrix war that's being fought in consensus reality. That is what they want us to fight: left versus right, Muslim versus Christian, Zionist versus anti-Zionist, or whatever. That's what they want us to fight each other. We need to be uniting against the criminals that run the major power-wielding institutions of this world to inflict slavery upon us. They're trying to enslave the world, turn us all into a bunch of serfs to serve their will, and we need to resist that.
Absolutely. I mean, really all there is free humanity standing against the tyrants. That's the only two groups.
That's right. And everything else is divide and conquer. It's the oldest maxim in warfare. It's what they do. It, I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative. You're a Democrat. You're a liberal. No, you're both Americans. And if you're fighting among each other, then you're idiots. You're not. You don't deserve. You're going to get the government you deserve if you don't understand these games that they play. And that's what I've tried to do with my career, is just inform people. Look, it's the CIA that sent the special forces down to Colombia to build radio towers to guide the drug planes into Albrook Air Force Base in Panama, and then my buddy Barry Seal flew them up to Mena, Arkansas, and that got him killed. But he did bring me some of the best Oaxacan I've ever had. I don't know. It's strange, you know.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the Mena, Arkansas thing. That's actually, we mentioned that just briefly in the film. The day of the bombing, you know, the FBI comes in there, or at least people wearing FBI raid jackets. They're coming in there dismantling the video cameras on the side of the building and around the area, and they're also picking up all these documents. And, you know, we've interviewed some people like V.Z. Lawton and some other individuals that, you know, informed us that, you know, the paperwork from a lot of these stuff from the Whitewater investigation and the, you know, the drug running through Mena, Arkansas, this stuff, the paperwork was all stored in the Murrah building. And so, you know, it's not really sure whether or not, you know, the bombing occurred to somehow maybe get that paperwork out of there, or maybe that it was just so sensitive they were willing to let people die in the building while they, you know, pulled their trucks up there and searched the grounds for all this documentation.
Was it?
I mean,
was it
just shows you how
building?
deep these you know, these criminal activities go. I mean, it touches almost every event that, you know, like this that happens.
This what kind of results have you got off of the film here? What kind of feedback here? I know you've got it. Alex Jones is selling some of your videos, and I'd love to have them too. I'd love to. I've always you know, tried to put the correct information into the Free American. But what kind of feedback are you getting off of it?
Well, the most important feedback that I consider we're getting is from the victims and the victims' family members and those involved in the early truth-seeking efforts. And unanimously, they support the movie, and they think it was well done. What we wanted to do was reclaim our history and tell the true story of Oklahoma City, not the one being pandered by the government and the media. And I think we've done that. We have established at least more truths about the bombing than what the government is presenting. The people who lived it support the movie. The people who are interested in the story, they're interested in also. We are sold out right now. We can't even keep up with the orders.
Great.
The need for this information is out there.
Absolutely. I mean, and not only that, you know, we've sold these films all over the world. I mean, I think initially a lot of people that I was speaking to before the movie came out thought that it would just be a regional thing, that maybe people in Oklahoma and Texas would be interested, or, you know, people just, you know, in the southern states. But honestly, I mean, we've sold these things Belgium, Sweden, New Zealand, you name it. There are people interested in this subject all over the world, and that's because freedom is such an important idea nowadays, because we're experiencing so much increased government tyranny.
You know, I've kind of altered my goals. I don't want to destroy the New World Order. I just want to take it over and run it the way a constitutional republic should be run. You know, if we're going to have world government, let's have one that supports the individuals and the rights of the individuals that our Bill of Rights was based on, instead of this whole communist facade that they've created for us.
Absolutely.
Now,
Exactly.
I filmed the first Homeland Security meeting. I got John Gentry went into the Homeland Security meeting in Albuquerque. This is the first one. This is right after 9/11. And we filmed Colonel John Brinkerhoff lecturing law enforcement in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Sandia Labs. And he says we're in for a long war. This war may be longer than the Cold War, and the enemy is weak. The enemy will use unconventional methods, and we must use unconventional methods to combat them. The enemy's weak. They don't have tanks. They don't have planes. And if we have a natural disaster like an earthquake along the New Madrid fault line, like an atomic bomb set off somewhere, or a earthquake of sufficient magnitude on along the New Madrid fault line, or a outbreak of smallpox in a major metropolitan area, we'll need 400,000 well-armed, well-trained, organized, disciplined troops to control the American people. Couldn't happen with posse comitatus, right? Are you talking about the National Guard, Colonel Brinkerhoff? No. The National Guard's too expensive. Besides that, they're going to be in Iraq or Afghanistan or Iran or someplace else, anywhere but America. And I guess you need 400,000 troops because some Americans, he says, just won't follow orders. Some of us won't line up on the Kmart parking lot to get vaccines that'll give us the disease they're trying to protect us against.
Exactly, and what are these institutions being used to protect us against? I mean, like President Bush said after 9/11, the enemy hates us for our freedoms, so why is the federal government taking away our freedoms? It's just basically, it demonstrates that they work hand in hand. The terrorists and the federal government work hand in hand to inflict their agenda, and that the purpose of all this legislation is not to crack down on Al-Qaeda, or that is to be used against the American citizen. I mean, you can't even travel these days without being groped by some thug in a blue uniform. You can't walk the streets and ask questions about the government without the faint fear of being snatched into a van and pulled off the street and never being seen again. That is a real possibility because they have the power to do it now. We have crossed the Rubicon, and we're basically we're no longer living under a free government. When the government has the right to come pick you up and snatch you up off the street, that is not a free government anymore. And just because the media won't portray it that way doesn't mean it isn't so. The media is never going to wake people up. The media is corporate driven. They're driven by advertising revenue. And people who are engaged in revolution do not buy Ford F-150s or go to Pizza Hut or go to McDonald's. They're busy protesting in the streets, having mass civil disobedience and shutting the gears of this evil machine down. So the media is not going to go along with the revolution. They're going to play hand in hand because they're invested in the status quo, which is more profitable.
It's my friend John Prockman started the militia in Montana. They had the FBI surrounded. That's why they brought Bo Greitz in, counterintelligence specialist, to save the FBI, not Randy Weaver. I mean, Bo will tell you he saved Randy Weaver. I tell you that he arrested Randy Weaver for the FBI. And but what they did to Randy Weaver, they could do to anybody. Now, and Randy made a little bit of money out of it. That's about all. Lost his wife, lost his son. I don't know, the people in Waco, I've interviewed them. I've seen the films from inside that. 50 caliber bullet holes in the ceiling of a room filled with children.
Yeah, I've been to the Branch Davidian church since then, last summer. Visited the people there. They certainly are not living off any largesse of the government. And it's a sad place. It's a place where a lot of people died in a school bus, and the government killed them.
Well, another interesting point, that we make in the film is that McVeigh actually mentioned a part of his chain of command, which was Larry Potts, which, Larry Potts was, the director of the FBI and involved at the Ruby Ridge with Randy Weaver and his family, and then also was involved at the Waco incident as well. And so, you can see how these, events are tied together by the same individuals like, Eric Holder and Larry Potts. We don't hold these people accountable, and yet, they're able to just continue, doing these things over and over again. That's why it's so important that people watch this film and understand who these people are. That way, whenever it happens again, people can recognize it for what it truly is.
And this part of the thing about Oklahoma City, where did they store the bullet-riddled door from Waco? Where did they? What did they do with the evidence from Waco? Wasn't that stored at the federal building in Oklahoma City?
I cannot confirm whether any specific evidence from Waco was stored at Oklahoma City, but we know that a large part of the Waco operation was run out of Oklahoma City. During the Waco siege, the FBI spokesman during that time was FBI agent Bob Ricks. You probably recognize his face and voice if you saw it again, because he was the one on TV every day explaining how great a job the FBI was doing at Waco, and afterwards, when it burned to the ground, he was the one explaining why the FBI held back the fire trucks and all that, and how it was all in their best interest. Bob Ricks was the special agent in charge of the Oklahoma City office during the Waco siege and during the Oklahoma City bombing. And Bob Ricks also took charge of the murder of Oklahoma City police officer Terrence Yakey, who was found murdered on federal property. Therefore, it became a FBI investigation, and Bob Ricks is the one who flew in and handled the investigation. So, just like Eric Holder and Larry Potts, you see these same players again and again.
Yeah, covering their own ass. Now, let me talk about Kenneth Yakey and or Terrence Yakey, Terry Yakey, and Kenneth Trentadue. Tell me about him. Now, his brother is a lawyer there in Oklahoma.
Yes,
but I remember running the story about his death in the Free American.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about Kenneth Trentadue. How does he fit into this? What did he have?
Okay, Kenny Trentadue was a prisoner. He was actually a probation violator. He had been picked up crossing the border into the U.S. back from in San Diego. He was visiting family in Mexico, came back up to San Diego, like he had many times. He was on a parole violation for drinking beer while on parole, which was not a serious offense. In fact, he probably would not have done any time at all. And in fact, they hadn't bothered him in the years since the violation. Just right after Oklahoma City, they picked him up, flew him to Oklahoma City for some reason for a parole hearing, and then a couple days later he ends up dead with bruises all over his body, bruises on his fists, strangled, cut, beaten on the soles of his feet, injected with caffeine to enhance pain under torture, and it's ruled a suicide. Kenny's brother Jesse is actually from Salt Lake City, Utah. He started looking into his brother's death and couldn't figure out why they had killed him until he received a message actually, from Tim McVeigh right before Tim was executed. Tim McVeigh told Jesse Trentadue that the FBI killed his brother because they thought he was Johnny Lee Guthrie. Now, Johnny Lee Guthrie is a bank robber.
It was Richard Lee Guthrie.
Richard Lee Guthrie, I apologize. Richard Lee Guthrie was involved with the Aryan Republican Army, which was the fundraising arm of the, well, basically they were raising funds, robbing banks to finance a race war in the U.S. And McVeigh had some very tangible connections to these people, and there's been a long suspicion that Guthrie may have been John Doe number 2. So what it appears is that the FBI thought Kenny Trentadue, who matched his physical description and matched his general criminal record, they thought he was Guthrie. And when he could not give them the information they wanted, the interrogation went bad, and he was killed, and they covered it up.
I think it just shows what these government agencies are capable of more than anything. I mean, it's not that Kenny had any specific evidence that would have blown this case open, but through the investigation that Jesse did to get justice for his brother's murder, he uncovered just an unbelievable amount of smoking gun evidence that linked the Southern Poverty Law Center and the FBI and many people in these organizations directly to the Oklahoma City bombing. And then you look at what they did to his brother in custody. It just shows these people have no moral compunction about hurting people to get what they want.
Southern Poverty Law they evidently, my phone is like an open communication towards to Southern Poverty Law or DHS. I've had accidents arranged when I called home to ask my son where he needed me to go next. I've had people call me up and say, Clay, I want to help you get the Free American back out. People need to know what's going on. I just bought a 70-acre ranch down here on the border, and they're setting up a UN base across from me, and the Mexicans are coming across here. The drug runners are coming across my 70-acre land here all the time. I want to help you. People need to know what's going on. Well, I appreciate that, Casey. His name was Casey Nethercott. I appreciate that, Casey, but, it's kind of expensive to do a magazine. Clay, I got $1.5 million in one account. Money's not an issue. Come down and talk to me. Buy me breakfast, Casey. I'll be down in the morning. I got down in the morning to Douglas, Arizona, but I couldn't see Casey because he was surrounded by Border Patrol, and he had been shot by some agency coming out of Safeway with my breakfast. That story made it to 60 Minutes because Morris Dees went back and got the Jim Hogg County Sheriff's Department to retry Casey Nettercott on a charge of pistol whipping 2 illegal aliens. And while he was in court, he went to the Morris Dees Southern Poverty Law, went to Douglas, Arizona, and sued him. But since he was in court in Texas, he didn't show up, so he got a default judgment, gave the 70-acre ranch to 2 illegals, and Casey Nettercott went to a Texas prison for 2 years.
Wow.
This is Southern Poverty Law in action, and that's the same ones that listed me or starting a militia. That's the same ones that listed me in 40 to watch. It's the same ones that went after Charles Collins. When I was working with Charles Collins for president, you probably never heard of Charles Collins because every time he got up to speak, every cameraman on stage turned their cameras off, took a smoke break, so nobody knew that he was opposing the Federal Reserve.
Wow, that's convenient.
Convenient. But of course, they've done the same thing. You know, they've assassinated every president who tried to go against the Federal Reserve. Tried to, anyway.
Sure. Yeah, Kennedy, Lincoln. I think even Garfield had something to do with that.
Yeah,
too.
that's right.
I don't remember, but
Garfield.
He was speaking out against Lincoln.
yeah.
And this is, well, and Kennedy, I mean, Kennedy warned us. I mean, you've heard Kennedy's talk about speech about a monolithic enemy that controls so much.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite speeches of his.
Yes.
It's one that the media doesn't like to put out there too much.
That's right. I have something that's fairly unique in my wallet here. I've got a $5 bill that's worth $10,000.
Wow. I wish I had one of those, couple of them.
I won't cash it. I won't break it. I won't sell it. But it's a United States note with a red seal on it. And it's I believe the reason you don't see many of those is because that's the first thing Johnson did was recall that money on the plane going back to Washington after Kennedy's assassination.
That's right. Kennedy had printed up those greenbacks like Lincoln had done as
That's
well,
right.
and it was backed by the United States government, not the Federal Reserve. And you know, I'm pretty convinced after looking at the evidence that that's probably the reason why he was assassinated.
Yeah, among others, you know, wanting to close down the Israeli nuclear thing. They closed down the CIA. He might even want to stop the drug dealing. He didn't want to do the war in Vietnam, another war like the Iraq War, based on lies. No Gulf of Tonkin incident. What they're trying to do, in my opinion, is they're creating problems. They're trying to the whole Occupy movement is trying to destabilize this country to get us, the people, fighting against the cops.
Right.
That's again, this is the divide and conquer that they're trying to lay on us.
Yeah, I mean, the cops don't realize they're on the same side we are.
The cops ought to be escorting the Occupy to the bankers' doors, and we ought to be arresting the bankers, but that probably ain't going to happen until we really understand that this. We're talking about individuals. You know, this ain't about race. It ain't about religion. Constitution protects you. Well, you want to stick your nose in the dirt, your ass up in the air. I'll try to keep the Saint Bernard off of you. Just don't expect me to get down on my knees with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, we see what's going on, and I personally believe that a lot of the police officers don't like what they're having to do, but the leadership in these police departments, you know, the chiefs and the commandants and all these guys, you know, these people are deeply connected with the elite. You know, only the elite families are allowed to put people in those positions of power. And so, you know, I tell a lot of my friends that are working for law enforcement and stuff, you know, just refuse to follow any order that is against the Constitution. They all took an oath to protect that against any enemy, foreign or domestic. You know, I did that myself when I went to the service. I know Holland did as well, you know, and I took it very seriously. And, you know, I hate to demonize the police because a lot of those people are really good people. You know, they have families, they're just trying to pay their bills and stuff, and they're caught up in a bad situation. But ultimately, if they don't stand up first and say that we're not going to put up with this, you know, we're really lost. So, you know, we really do need them to, you know, wake up.
Well, you know what? That is happening. Stuart Rhodes, who happens to be Jewish, is doing that with the Oath Keepers. He is, he's trying to bring their people together. Sheriff Richard Mack is trying to do something with the sheriffs. They've got a conference coming up in January here in Las Vegas, and so people are trying to do that. And you're right. You want to fight the New World Order, you don't go shoot the AT&T operator. And the police, what I've tried to do in Arizona, right where I'm at right now, is build up support for the sheriffs, because the sheriffs are our last line of defense against tyranny. They're elected. They're law enforcement officers that are elected from you. Let me try to take a call here real quick. Hello from 617 area code. You're on Free American Hour.
As far as Oklahoma City is concerned, hold on to your hats, because I believe Obama's going to get reelected by a false flag attack that's going to be Oklahoma City style. I hope it doesn't happen, but my prediction is an Oklahoma City attack, which Muslims will do, or the government will do, and they'll blame it on us. That's my prediction for 2012. Hope it doesn't come to pass. I thank you very much, and have a good day.
Thank you. Now, I think you could be right, and I think the false flag attack will be blamed on Iran. They got to start another war somewhere. We back Al Qaeda in CIA. I call it Al CIA. Duh. That's possible. It could happen. But meanwhile, I really appreciate the fact that you're making people get out the information where they can go to get your film. It's all linked on my site.
Anoblelie.com, anoblelie.com. You can watch the trailer and order it there. It's on back order right now, but we'll be receiving and sending out copies just after next day or two when we get in from the duplicator. And the fact that the caller brought up about another false flag attack, and that is why this movie is very timely, because the political environment would benefit from a false flag attack. Not that the American people would, but the political environment. Obama is stagnant. Although he is facing no major opposition in the presidential election, his own presidency is stagnant, the economy is stagnant, and he's not very popular even among his supporters. Robert Shapiro, a former Clinton advisor and now a cabinet member, has opined that Obama administration needs another Oklahoma City-style attack to reinvigorate its body politic. So they are saying that they need another Oklahoma City attack, and that is why this movie is so important, because it wakes people up to the methodology of these attacks, the agenda of these attacks. And if we wake people up and they see this movie, when it happens again, people will be able to recognize it for what it is and refuse to cooperate with whatever agenda is going to be pushed down our throats after the bombing.
All right. We're out of time here, folks. I appreciate you listening. And, Guy Holland, I really appreciate you guys doing the show with me.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
It's an honor to talk to you, Mr. Douglas. I've admired your work for years.
Well, thank you. Maybe you should give me a call later on after the show, and let's figure out some ways that we can work together. After the accident that tried to put me out of business, almost ended my whole career in 2004. It's the patriot community didn't come behind me. Now, why wouldn't they? When I blew the whistle on Waco, when I blew the whistle on Oklahoma City, why wouldn't they do that, Holland? Why wouldn't Nobody's talked to me since. Nobody's talked to me since that accident. Was that a message to anybody? See what almost happened to Clay?
Well, I'm going to have to do my homework on that, but what I do know is that, they keep us divided against one another. They don't want us uniting, and they'll use anything. There's lots of players involved in the movement who may not have our best interest in mind, and then you see the Ed and Elaine Brown case, where people were standing up for them while they're, facing that standoff, and after they go to jail, you never hear about them again. Whereas the patriot community now, Ed and Elaine Brown are being held God knows where, under God knows what conditions. So that's something perhaps that the movement needs to work on, is unity in the face of opposition. And when someone's in trouble, we help them out. We're the only ones we can rely upon. We certainly can't rely upon the government.
All right, sir. I appreciate that. That's great for the last word. Thank you again. I appreciate you being